controlling the body. Now, when we talk about their production, and if we think about the actual two structures that are doing this, this is our brain. This is your brain on it. Now, okay. Now, brain, little bitty area with that little bitty hypothalamus and our little pituitary gland. Then we got the rest of the body. All right. Then we've got all the different types of hormones in the hypothalamus, releasing or inhibiting. In the pituitary, ADH, oxytocin on the posterior side. All the rest of them over here on the anterior side, whether stimulating, not, or production of the growth of, whatever. That's a lot of material from only a very small part of the body. So, their actual production, hypothalamus, pituitary gland wise, okay, their actual production does not have to be huge, okay? When we have a stimulus to that hypothalamus, which is going to affect the anterior or the posterior pituitary, we don't need, let's put it in numbers, we don't need 100 molecules from the hypothalamus to go to that pituitary gland, say the anterior, all right, and have to find 100 cells for that one hormone. We can have one or two from the hypothalamus make their way to the one or two cells of the anterior pituitary and get the product, and maybe get 4. And those 4 can go to their target cell. And then it begins to act. So what we say is that there is signal amplification, meaning the actual hormone that will get produced. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can make it to the cell of its target. And what's that cell at the C amp, because that's what this is considered when it gets received, okay? It can begin to go through these activated steps in the cell. And as it does that, remember, the nucleus of that cell is doing what it's doing because that's its job. All right? So, for example, the pancreas, some of those cells, their job, make insulin. So, in the DNA of that cell, it still contains 46 chromosomes. Each chromosome containing every gene of your genetic makeup. What is the only gene that needs to be available? The only gene, if I'm thinking about my pancreas and the fact that that's going to be where I get insulin, the only gene that needs to be available is the insulin gene. Now, what does that mean? In the pancreas, We have those isolates, islands of cells, okay? Have alpha, beta, delta. Does everybody remember that? Okay? Each one of these cells will have the 46 chromosomes. So that means 46 strings of DNA. This could be chromosome 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Y'all see what I mean? I got gene, 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 gene. But the gene for insulin might only be right here. The whole remaining 45 chromosomes can stay coiled up, just sitting there. They're not needed, not technically, but for the most part. The one I need to be uncoiled a little bit is number 5, and the part I only need open is the gene for insulin. So in every single cell of this isolate, I need that chromosome with that gene open. So that when it receives the information, make the product, and it begins to act by way of these little C-amp and the G protein complex and these little activations. So every time that gene over here codes for that insulin and it comes out, gets attached to ribosomes, and it starts making the chain, this activated portion from the hormone can come over here and help it to fold and get correct and go to the Golgi apparatus and get packaged, go to the cell membrane and spit out. So therefore, it only took one hormone, but I might get 1,000,000 insulins. Amplification. Yes, no, maybe. Whew. That's how they work. We don't need them in large amounts. There are effects that they can have when they reach their target. Now, effects of just about anything in our body, okay? We can have effects that are considered synergistic. Synergy. Oh, everybody's happy and just working together. There is so much synergy. Okay? We can have permissive. Well, you get to do that only if you blank. I'm giving you permission to do something. Antagonistic. Oh, no, we're not doing this. We're not working together. So we can have synergistic, permissive, antagonistic. This is going to help either increase that product or decrease that product. Help the product work better, maybe not help the product, okay? And then, one of the things that has to happen, the hormones, we have to make sure that there is a control, that there is some way that we're saying we need more product, we don't need more product, okay? And then, once they're turned off and they've done their job and they're no longer needed, the hormones have to get what's called degraded. For the most part, the hormones will get degraded in the liver or the kidneys or by their target cell, depending on whether they make it into the target cell or if they just attach to a receptor, because the receptor means they still get back to the bloodstream. So they will go to the liver and be degraded. They do know that some of these hormones clear the body quicker than others. They refer to it as a clearance rate. They base it on half-life. So if this hormone is good for 24 hours, and 12 we should have half as much, and 6 we should have half of that half, and 3 we should have half of that half. Do you see where I'm going with that? Okay? So they kind of know what should be the clearance rate. Now, at the time that a cell may need the hormone, one of the things that they can do to help control its use, cells themselves can control hormone usage. If a cell needs to make more product, it can do what's called upregulation. And basically what that cell did, it created more receptors, pushed them to the membrane of the cell. The receptors are now available to accept the hormone, and I now affect the product getting made. Therefore, I would make the cell would make more product. If the cell is saying, okay, I've done enough right now, I either need to focus on reproducing or focus on the end of my lifespan, whatever the case might be, that cell can reduce the number of receptors. This is termed down regulation. Those receptors decrease in number. It doesn't accept as many hormones. It's not producing as much product, and the cell can do what it needs to do, repair, grow, whatever the case might be. Just a way that the cell can help with its control. But take a break, be back at 10:30.